We begin with the latest on that search for the 2 missing children in rural Nova Scotia. RCMP say cadaver dogs will begin searching for Lilly and Jack Sullivan, who went missing in May. But officials are maintaining they don't have any reason to believe that the siblings are dead. Andrew Sampson tells us more.
4.5 months after Lilly and Jack Sullivan went missing from their home in Pictou County, the RCMP says it will send in cadaver dogs trained to pick up the scent of human remains. This is something that family members, including Lilly and Jack's stepfather, have been asking for. So why now? At a news briefing on Friday, an RCMP spokesperson said that although they don't have any information to suggest the children are deceased, they have to consider all avenues. Police say they've been looking into a variety of leads over the course of the investigation, and that they now plan to use the dogs in an area where they believe there is the highest probability of finding Lilly and Jack. 2 dogs and 2 RCMP officers trained in locating human remains are coming from BC to conduct the search. The children's paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray, says she's happy to see the dogs being deployed, but she still questions what took so long. 8.5 square kilometers of dense woods near their home have already been searched, but until now, only dogs that can trace human scent but not human remains had been used. It's unclear when the search will begin, but it won't be this weekend. Police say they're keeping the details close to their chest to protect officer safety and not compromise the investigation. Andrew Sampson, CBC News, Halifax.
Okay, for more insight into this, we're going to now turn to Bruce Pitt-Payne. Bruce is a retired RCMP major crimes investigator, joining us tonight from Maple Ridge, BC. Bruce, it is good to speak to you on this.
Hi, Sarah.
So the RCMP planning to use cadaver dogs. What does this news tell you about where we are in the investigation and where things are going? I mean, what they have said is they don't believe they have any reason to think that the children are dead, but the use of cadaver dogs is going to make a lot of people think that they must.
Yeah, and they've said that over and over again, and with the information or the lack of information we have, which is normal at this point, the public wouldn't know exactly what the police know, but if we go on what they're saying, this is a logical step. It seems that they've been doing a thorough process so far, going through all of the steps that generally would happen in a missing persons investigation. And now they're at the point where this is probably the logical next step. Even if it's a Hail Mary, kudos to the police for doing things that might give some sort of resolution.
So what is a cadaver dog then looking for?
They're trained specifically, aside from other police dogs training. They look, instead of for cross-training and all different sorts of scents, they're focused primarily on the decomposition of human remains. And so that's what they're going to be looking for, so at least the police can possibly rule out certain areas.
They're not saying when this is actually going to happen, where it's actually going to take place, this particular part of the search. Why wouldn't they be a little more open about that?
Yeah, there's several reasons for that. The predominant reason is that they don't want what we in the business used to call looky-loos showing up. They could distract the dogs. You can imagine that, for instance, if people show up with heavy perfume on, that alone could be a scent noise and a distraction to the dogs and interference. But also the having people around could distract them. And frankly, it could be in dangerous terrain. You never know, somebody could get hurt. The other reason is purely investigative, and it's regarding something called holdback evidence. If the police did, in fact, find some human remains in a certain area and it was released to anybody else in any way, it would mean they couldn't test the reliability of a confession later. So if somebody said, here's where the remains should be, it would show that that was a reliable, and I'll use the term confession, should that come later. So the police do not want to ruin that opportunity.
Why do you say that you feel like this is the time, the appropriate time to bring in this kind of a device, these animals? I'm just wondering if you were looking to rule something like this out, why not do it, a couple of months ago? This goes back to May.
Yeah, generally the dogs, I'm going to give you an idea here, is they're not perfect. And I think that that was said earlier, and from the research I've done, they're not perfect, so you could get false or negative, false positives or negatives. Meaning that if the dog thought it detected something, it could be rotting foliage, it could be a dead animal, it could be anything like that. That could lead to a bias on the part of the investigators, redirect them from areas that they should be working on. So it could waste time and delay a result. Now, you could get a false negative as well, where they don't detect anything, leading to a bias that the children are not in that area. And that could lead to a bias where tunnel vision kicks in and the police leave that search scene. So, because it's not 100% perfect, it is not the optimal way. It is another way of trying to find what happened. And usually it comes later in the investigation because there's lots of other things that they've been working on.
So we had heard, from the stepfather in this that he was concerned that they weren't searching elsewhere outside of the wooded area behind the home, that perhaps the children had been taken. If, in fact, these cadaver dogs go in and they don't find any evidence of decomposing body, if the children are not found there, where do you think that at this stage of the investigation, what are the next steps?
Well, I can tell you that, for one thing, just if we still focus on the cadaver dogs, the fact that there is a negative result from any upcoming search does not mean that they aren't going to do it again. And that's what I meant by a false negative. If they don't find anything this time, there could be a logical reason if remains were found later, which would mean that they will do continuous searches probably. And I'm going to guess, it could be 6 months, could be every year. But the cadaver dog handler, I believe it was Staff Sergeant Pike, said earlier that if remains are underground, for instance, or in a container or underwater, then as time goes by, a subsequent search might reveal more of a scent.
Bruce Pitt-Payne, retired RCMP Major Crimes Investigator. Great to speak to you about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.